Let me ask you a question. If a woman loses her husband, loses her son, loses her daughter, loses everything, what would she do? Would she break down? Would she collapse? Or would she disappear into grief? But there was one woman who lost all of this and yet she stood tall. Not just for herself, but for millions of people. A British officer once wrote, "Search the entire history of the world and you will not find a more ideal ruler." She was the great Lokmata Ahilyabai Holkar. And today we are going to hear her complete story. A story so powerful that it may bring tears to your eyes and fill your heart with pride. Hello, I warmly welcome you all. Watch this episode till the very end because there is something special waiting for you. 31st May 1725, a small village called Chondi in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra. In the house of village Patil Mankoji Shinde, a baby girl was born. Her name was Ahilya. At that time, girls were rarely allowed to study. Education for daughters was almost unheard of. But Mankoji Shinde was different. He personally taught Ahilya how to read and how to write. And in that little girl, there was something extraordinary. Intelligence, devotion, compassion. It felt as though God Himself had shaped her for a greater purpose. There was a temple in the village, and little Ahilya visited it every single day. She prayed, and with her own hands, she fed the poor and hungry. At just 8 years old. One day, a traveler witnessed this scene, and that one moment changed history forever. Because that traveler was no ordinary man. He was great Malhar Rao Holkar, the great commander of Malwa, a trusted general of the Peshwas, brave, wise, and visionary. He was on his way to Pune and he stopped at Chondi. There, inside the temple, he saw a little girl with peace in her eyes, service in her hands, and divinity in her heart. Malhar Rao stood still and a thought arose in his mind. This child is no ordinary girl. She carries a rare strength within her. She must become the Lakshmi of my household. He met Mankoji Shinde and said, "I wish for your daughter Ahilya to marry my son Khande Rao." Mankoji agreed, and in 1733, at the age of just 8, Ahilya became the daughter-in-law of the Holkar dynasty. A little girl from a simple village now entered one of the great royal families of India. But here is what makes this story extraordinary. Malhar Rao did not treat Ahilya merely as a daughter-in-law. He treated her like his own daughter. Because through his affection, his trust, and his guidance, a legendary queen was about to be born. But Ahilyabai's married life was not easy. Her husband Khande Rao was brave, but he struggled with addictions and had little interest in governance. Ahilyabai tried to support him with patience, with love, with strength. But at the same time, under Malhar Rao's guidance, she began learning administration, politics, statecraft, because Malhar Rao had already recognized something the world had not yet seen. This woman was extraordinary, not only capable, but destined for greatness. The year was 1754, the Battle of Kumbhair. Khande Rao entered the battlefield with courage, and in one devastating moment, a cannonball struck him, and everything changed. Khande Rao Holkar was killed in battle. Ahilyabai, at just 20 years old, became a widow. Imagine that, a young woman whose life had barely begun suddenly lost her world. And in those times, society expected only one thing from a widow, Sati, to burn herself alive on her husband's funeral pyre. That was considered duty, that was considered honor, and Ahilyabai too decided to commit Sati. She believed, what meaning does my life hold now? But this is where history changed forever. Because Malhar Rao Holkar stepped forward. He held Ahilyabai back and said, "Stop, you will not die. This kingdom, this kingdom needs you. These millions of people needs you. Your life no longer belongs only to you. It belongs to your people." And this was not just a father-in-law saving his daughter-in-law. This was history calling upon a future queen. And Ahilyabai stopped. That one decision did not just save her life. It transformed the destiny of millions. But Malhar Rao did not stop there. He did not merely ask her to leave. He prepared her to lead. He became her mentor and trained her in statecraft, politics, military strategy, economics, diplomacy. A young widow whom society may have seen as weak was being shaped into one of the India's greatest rulers. In 1765, While fighting near Delhi, Malhar Rao wrote Ahilyabai a letter, and in that letter he instructed her cross the Chambal, go to Gwalior, take the heavy cannons, capture the fort of Gohad, and establish security post on the way. Think about this. At a time when women were often denied even basic freedom, a widow was being entrusted with a military command. That speaks volumes about Malhar Rao's faith in her. And even more importantly, Ahilyabai fulfilled that responsibility successfully. She proved she was not merely learning, she was becoming a leader. But destiny had more pain in the store. In 1766, Malhar Rao Holkar died. Her mentor, her guide, her greatest supporter was gone. Once again, Ahilyabai stood alone. But tragedy was not over yet. After Malhar Rao, her son Malhar Rao ascended the throne. But Malhar Rao struggled with the mental illness and could rule only for a few months. On 5th April 1767, he too passed away. Ahilyabai lost her only son. Now imagine her pain. First, her husband, then her father-in-law, then her son. An ordinary person would have shattered. But life delivered one more cruel blow. Her daughter, Muktabai, decided to commit Sati. Ahilyabai tried desperately to stop her, but Muktabai did not listen, and she too was gone. Now pause for a moment. A woman who lost her husband, her mentor, her son, her daughter, yet continued to stand. Why? Because by then her life was no longer personal. She understood my pain may be mine, but my responsibility belongs to millions. And that was Ahilyabai's true courage. Fighting with a sword on a battlefield is bravery, but after losing everything, to still rise, to still serve, to still lead, that is far greater form of courage. After the death of her son Malhar Rao, the Holkar kingdom faced a critical question. Who would rule now? Several ministers in the court suggested adopt a son, place him on the throne. On the surface, it sounded like a practical advice, but beneath it was political ambition. Some courtiers believed if a symbolic heir was placed on the throne, the real power could remain in their hands. Men like Gangadhar Rao Jeswant hoped to control the kingdom from behind the curtains. But Ahilyabai was no ordinary woman. She understood the conspiracy, and instead of surrendering, she made a bold decision. She wrote directly to the Peshwas. In her letter, she clearly stated, I wish to govern this kingdom myself. I want to serve my people. Grant me permission. This was revolutionary. Because in that era, for a woman, a widow, to ask for direct political authority was almost unimaginable. But the Peshwas knew Ahilyabai's capability. They replied, yeah, we are aware of your competence. Rule the kingdom. You have our support. And so, on the 11th December 1767, Ahilyabai Holkar became the ruler of Malwa. A widow, a grieving mother, a woman who had endured unimaginable personal loss, now sat on one of the India's great thrones. But receiving the throne was not the end of her struggle. It was the beginning. Many nobles and powerful men opposed her. They said, a woman cannot control, a woman cannot rule. Governance is a man's duty. This will not work. But Ahilyabai did not respond with fear. She responded with presence. Calmly, she rose, mounted her elephant, armed herself with bows and arrows, and faced her critics. Then she declared, I know that I am a woman, but never forget, I am the daughter-in-law of great Malhar Rao Holkar. And that was not just a statement, it was a warning, a declaration of strength, a message that leadership is defined not by gender, but by capability. And in that moment, the opposition fell silent. A new era began. Ahilyabai refused to remain hidden behind royal curtains. She did not isolate herself from her people. Every day, she held open court and anyone could approach her. A poor farmer, a widow, a merchant, a soldier, no matter their wealth or status. There was no barrier, no fear, no discrimination. Justice was not reserved for the powerful. It was available to all. And that is why slowly she stopped being seen merely as a queen and became Lokmata, mother of people. One famous incident revealed her sense of justice. A powerful landlord once illegally seized the land of a poor farmer. The trembling farmer came to the Ahilyabai's court and pleaded for justice. Ahilyabai listened carefully. She summoned the landlord and investigation was conducted. And when the truth was revealed, she confiscated the landlord's property and returned the land to the farmer. Then she said, "Anyone who commits injustice against my people is my enemy." Think about that. A ruler who saw the sufferings of ordinary people as a personal battle. That was Ahilyabai's Rajdharma. She did not simply govern, she redefined power itself. Ahilyabai Holkar's reign was not just about holding power, it was about transforming society. For her, the throne was not a symbol of privilege, it was responsibility. Her greatest strength was justice, a justice where caste did not matter, wealth did not matter, status did not matter. Only truth mattered. Her court was open to everyone, farmers, widows, merchants, soldiers. Every voice could be heard. And that is why her people did not merely see her as a ruler, they saw her as a mother. But one of Ahilyabai's most revolutionary contributions was her work for women. In that era, widowhood often meant social death. A widow was expected to suffer, to live without dignity, without rights, without independence. But Ahilyabai challenged this system. She introduced bold reforms. A widow had the right to her husband's property. She had the right to make decisions about her own life. And if necessary, she had the right to adopt a son. Today, this may sound like basic rights, but in the 18th century, this was social revolution. Many were shocked, some opposed her, but Ahilyabai firmly declared, laws are made for human beings. Human beings are not made for laws. And this was not merely governance, it was humanity. She also created a fairer tax system. Farmers were not crushed under excessive taxation. During droughts and hardships, relief was provided. Her philosophy was simple. A kingdom prospers when its people prosper, not when they are exploited. She strengthened trade, built roads, improved security, and encouraged commerce. As a result, Malwa became economically prosperous under her rule. But Ahilyabai's vision extended even further. She recognized the danger of British expansion early. In 1772, she warned the Peshwas. Other wild animals like lions or tigers may be defeated by force. But when a bear grips you, it does not let go. The British are like that. Be cautious. Think about that. At a time when British power in India was still growing, Ahilyabai had already understood their strategic threat. This was extraordinary foresight. She was not merely compassionate, she was politically sharp, strategically aware, and deeply intelligent. Her military remained strong, her administration disciplined, and her people secure. Her personal life was equally disciplined. Her daily routines reflected devotion and duty. Prayer, court, administration, public welfare, religious service. Day after day, she never treated royalty as a luxury. For her, power meant service. And perhaps that is why history has seen many kings, many queens, but only Ahilyabai became Lokmata, mother of people. Friends, Ahilyabai Holkar was not only just a ruler, she was also one of India's greatest cultural restorers. She did not merely preserve a kingdom, she helped rebuild civilization. When Aurangzeb destroyed the Kashi Vishwanath temple in 1669, it was not just the destruction of a structure, it was a deep wound to the spiritual heart of millions. For more than a century, that scattered site remained deprived of its former glory. Then came Ahilyabai. In 1780, using her personal wealth, not the state treasury, she rebuilt the Kashi Vishwanath temple. This was not merely temple construction, it was the restoration of faith. And Kashi was not the only place touched by her vision. Somnath, Gaya, Ayodhya, Dwarka, Haridwar, Badrinath, Rameswaram, Mathura, Puri, from the Himalayas to southern India. Her contribution reached across the sacred geography of Bharat. She built temples, ghats, dharmashalas, wells, roads, public utilities, and support system for pilgrims. Her understanding of dharma was profound. True devotion was not only prayer, it was service. Her capital, Maheshwar, became more than a political center. It became a center of art, literature, and culture. Poets like Moropan, scholars, artists, craftsmen, all found patronage under her rule. She respected knowledge, she nurtured talent, she strengthened the culture. She also promoted the weaving industry in Maheshwar, giving rise to the famous Maheshwari saris tradition, which remains celebrated even today. This was Ahilyabai's vision, economic growth rooted in culture. By 1795, Ahilyabai was nearly 70 years old. Her body had aged, but her dedication had not. Even in her final years, her routine remained same: prayer, court, service, until her final breath on the 13th August 1795 in Maheshwar, Lokmata Ahilyabai Holkar passed away. That day, Malhar did not merely lose a queen, it lost a mother. Her people mourned deeply because rulers may govern kingdoms, but only a rare soul governs hearts. After her death, British officer John Malcolm wrote, Ahilabai's reign was a golden age of 30 years, a period of peace, prosperity, and justice rarely seen in the world history. Even Jawaharlal Nehru later described her as an extraordinary woman. But perhaps the most important question is, what can we learn from Ahilyabai today? First lesson, education is power. If her father had not educated her, history may never have known Lokmata. Second lesson, pain does not define your end. She lost her husband, she lost son, daughter, family, yet she rose. Third lesson, self-respect matters. She chose life over Sati, and that one choice transformed millions of lives. Fourth lesson, service is the highest form of worship. She did not live for herself, she lived for society. And that is why Ahilyabai Holkar is not merely a historical figure. She is timeless inspiration. A simple village girl who could have vanished into tragedy instead became one of the India's greatest rulers. Why? Because she did not stop. She did not surrender. She did not break. She transformed pain into purpose. And even today, for every woman, every leader, every human being, her story remains a reminder. No matter how difficult life becomes, courage, purpose, and service can make a history. My friends, Ahilyabai Holkar's story is not just a history. It is a story of courage, a story of service, story of leadership, and above all, a story of women who transfer personal pain into the strength of an entire society. She taught us, get educated, live with a self-respect, never bow before injustice, and wherever you are, become a source of light in the people's lives. Ahilyabai is no longer physically with us, but her work still lives on. In the sacred corridors of the Kashi Vishwanath, in the ghats of Maheshwar, in the temples across India, in the stories of justice, and in the hearts of millions, she still lives. Indore's airport bears her name, universities bear her name, but more importantly, she lives forever as a Lokmata, mother of people. A simple girl from a small village whom society may have considered ordinary went on to become one of the greatest rulers in Indian history. And that teaches us something powerful. Greatness does not come by birth. Greatness is built through choices, courage, struggle, and a life lived for others. So today, if life ever feels unbearable, if pain ever makes you feel defeated, remember Ahilyabai. Remember, do not stop, do not bend, do not surrender, because sometimes your greatest struggles may be preparing you for a greater purpose. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe our channel. So see you in the next episode. Till then, keep reading something, because if you read, you will succeed.